Duncan Foley, and we're going to quickly talk about the class next week and what we require you to get prepared for. Next week, we're going to be looking at research ethics, and you're going to be submitting your research ethics forms. Now, you've got to have quite a lot of information regarding your project before next week. You can't make this up on the day, so please take note, get ready, get all the information you need, and you should be okay. So next week we'll be asking you to go to the university's online ethics system. Don't do this prior to next week because you won't have everything ready. And we need to, next week in the lecture, we'll be talking about what is the ethics and stuff. But I want you to be aware of what you need before next week. But next week you'll be going onto the system. You'll be logging in with the university account. You'll be doing this in the tutorial. You'll be going to my application and you'll be submitting your own ethics process. So all that requires you to do is you'll have a username and a password. Then you'll go to my applications on there, and if you've submitted something before, you'll be the list of previous ones. More likely there'll be nothing there. And one thing is, if your application is rejected and requires minor modifications, they'll be listed here. And please go back and edit these. If you're asked to, don't resubmit a new one. Just go back and edit the one you've done. But you'll be creating a new one. So for next week, you need to have a project title, and we will tell you next week who the local research ethics coordinator is. Basically, the procedure is when you've completed this form, it will go to the module leader and will confirm the name. They will look at what you've submitted. Have you answered all the questions appropriately? Have you given enough information? And so you're required to submit for next week the questions. If you're going to do a survey, the questions of the survey, the consent form. If you're going to do an interview, the questions of the interview and the consent form, and the information for the person you're going to interview. So you need quite a lot of stuff done for next week. So moving on, it will move you to the next screen, which is a bit of information regarding the process and stuff. Please read it. Once you've submitted everything, it will go to your ethics coordinator. They will check everything's okay. They will either ask for minor modifications, or they will send it on to the faculty's ethics board, and they will look at it and again, and they will make a final decision. Again, if they reject it, you need to carry out the changes immediately. You cannot do any research, as in you can't interview anybody, you can't put surveys out there without getting ethical approval. This is extremely strict. Your work will not be marked if you have not got ethical approval. Once you've got past this procedure, you'll be given a list of 23 questions. Please work through them slowly. This again is next week, but you when you work through them, look at the questions, and the first 23 questions are yes nos. After you've done that, you will be asked to state a little bit about the project. This is where you need to do a lot of preparation before next week. Start date today, whatever it might be. End date, assignment end date. Brief description of your project. So you've decided to do a project on, state what it's all about. Why do you need to, what you're hoping to find out and stuff. You don't need a lot of words. It's maximum 100. So if we look at those questions 1 to 23, we're not going to look at all of them because most of the answers you should be answering no. But the first one involve directly or indirectly contacting with humans, where you're going to do a survey or an interview, you're going to talk to somebody, so the answer is almost definitely going to be yes. Involve analysis of pre-existing data. This person's put no, but you might be looking at background history of a company that you're going to interview, so you might be putting yes. Require permission or consent to conduct. Well, yes, if you're going to interview somebody, you've got to get their consent. If you're going to put a survey, if you do a survey, what you'll need to do, the first page of the survey should clearly state who you are, why you're doing the project, what the information you're trying to find out, what you're hoping to gain, and then it should say by clicking the next button to proceed to the questions you are giving consent. If it's an interview, they need to sign it, and you need to be able to prove that they've been giving you consent. Require permission to publish. So if you decide later on you're going to publish it at a conference stuff, maybe the person you're interviewing, you're going to have to get their permission, especially if you're going to use their name. You must ask them if they're happy for their name and position and company to be in your report. And then you go through the 23 questions. Like I say, most of them will be no for you guys. The system will then give you an automated analysis of your answers. This is risk categories 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. Risk category 1 is basically you're going to be in a room somewhere and you're not going to talk to anybody and anything like that. So that's not for you. Risk category 2 is where I think you will be, and you will need ethical approval. If this system comes up with risk category 3, you're not going to get ethical approval for this assignment. So you need to go back, look at the answers you've given, and make sure that you understood them. If you still think it's 3, then you're going to talk to the module leader, but it is almost 99% sure that you will be 2. After you've answered those questions, you'll be asked for the summary, a little bit of explanation, dates, start date, end date. End date is normally assignment and in date. External funding, no, you're not getting paid for that. Brief description of the project. Then this is where a lot of the work needs to be done before next week. You need to have a project overview. You can see the example on the right hand side. It's not pages and pages of information, but it is information that we need. So project overview, what is your project about? What you're trying to find out? The methodology, are you going to be using quantitative qualitative data analysis? Don't get confused with methodology and method. Main ethical consideration, are there any main ethical consideration? There is an example of the answers to this on my Beckett, so feel free to go and have a look and see what somebody else has written. If it's exactly the same as you, then yeah, you're fine. Just fill it in. Are there any human participants? How are you going to recruit them? Risk and benefits, personal data. How are you going to ensure anonymity? Reporting. How are you going to report the dissertation? Location of the research. Some people get a little bit confused with this. You're doing the research in the UK, so UK, even if you're an international student and you're interviewing somebody in Teams and stuff like that. If you do interview somebody, you need to record the interview. So I would recommend using something like Microsoft Teams, which by just pressing record, it will record the interview, but it will also automatically generate a very high quality transcript. It is common practice to download the transcript, send it back to the person you've interviewed and say something like, this is what was interviewed, thank you so much for the interview. If I don't hear from you by Friday, I'll presume that everything that was recorded you're happy with. You put the manuscript in the appendix, the whole manuscript. Any other permissions or external ethical approval required. So you need to, this is where you need to do all the work for next week. Um, then it's a declaration. You're basically saying you're going to work within the university regulations. You're not going to majorly change your questions from this submission to when you actually do it. Minor changes, basically grammar changes and stuff like that, are absolutely fine. If it's a completely new question or a completely new set of surveys and stuff, talk to your module leader, or if in doubt, just resubmit. Project submission. Sorry about that. This is where you're going to upload your your survey questions, your consent form for your survey questions, your consent form and information sheet for your interview. So when you do an interview, you would probably email them or talk to them and say, "Can I interview you? This is what it's all about." Okay. You'll say these, you might give them the questions. It's really up to you. Some people do, some people don't. Some people want, an answer on the spot sort of thing. Some people want the person you interview to have time to think about the questions and get all the facts and figures to help them. It's really up to you. But you need to tell them how long the interview is going to take, where the information's going and stuff. I've given examples of interview consent forms, information sheets, etc. on Beckett. Again, you will need these completed for next week. So you've got quite a lot of work to do. You've got the questions to sort out. You've got your project to sort out and stuff. So this is an example of the submission sheet and stuff. I would expect every student to be submitting something there. So again, recap, if you're doing a survey online, then you will need a full list of questions with the consent form. If you carry an interview, you will need to submit a full list of questions plus the consent form, plus an information sheet that comes with a consent form. So that it'll be this is what's going to happen in the interview, and then you're asking them to sign on the dotted line. If you're interviewing as well, it's quite common practice to start the interview with hello, would you like to introduce yourself, and just to confirm that you're still very happy to be interviewed and to answer all the questions. So you've got a video audio consent to the interview as well. So you have a lot of work to do for next week. You've got to get your questions that you're going to ask. You've got to have an idea of what your project's going to be about. And next week we will all go online in tutorial and we'll go through the submission process, and hopefully you'll get initial acceptance, and then what will happen is that will go to the faculty board, and they normally do quite quick turnarounds, but it can take up to 2 weeks. That's why we require you to do this very early on in the module, because there's a time lag to get ethical approval, and because there's so many of you, we need to get it started sooner rather than later. Okay, if there's any questions, please ask in class, and please get everything ready for next week.